You're listening to the Greeks Gridiron, live with Ethan Haristodoulou.
Welcome back, everyone, to more of the Greeks Gridiron. I'm Ethan Haristodoulou, and today I am taking a look at the New York Football Giants and diving into what I would like to see them do during this year's free agency period. So, my Giants fans, comment down below. Let me know who you would like to see the Giants let go, re-sign, or potentially go after once the free agency period officially opens up next week. That's what I'll be going over in this video here. And also comment down below and let me know your thoughts on the signing of Daniel Jones, 4-year deal, $160 million altogether. He's looking at $94 million guaranteed. He's only going to count towards $19 million on the cap for this upcoming season. I think this is a really good deal for both sides. You're getting Daniel Jones some good money, but on top of that, considering where quarterback contracts, especially on the high side, are going in the next few years, this, especially in the long term, when you're looking like 2 or 3 years down the road, is going to be a pretty decent value for those like upper tier and really good quarterbacks and what they're going to be paid. So I really like the contract, but I'd love to hear your thoughts as well. And also, franchise tag signing of Saquon Barkley. It's non-exclusive, but I really feel like whatever Saquon ends up being offered, the Giants will be more than willing to match. It's more so one of those just kind of let the market kind of decide what you're worth, and we'll be willing to pay you that, because I feel like both sides really want to have Saquon there for the long term with how good he looked last season in the new Brian Daboll-led system. But diving in with the first piece that I'll be discussing here is who I think the Giants should let go. And I will go ahead and say this. I was going to put Kenny Golladay in this spot, but since it is already announced that he's going to be released, I'm going to go ahead and put on another wide receiver, and that's going to be wide receiver Sterling Shepard. At 30 years old now and dealing with very injury-plagued the last couple of seasons, this is one of those receivers that I think it's time to just move on from. Again, being 30 years old at this point, having only played 10 games in the last 2 seasons, and you just paid him $10 million this past year for, I believe it was just, 3 games, whatever it may be. This is one of those things where it's just kind of, time for both sides to move on and let the Sterling Shepard experiment just come to an end at this point in time. I feel like with some of the young talent you have on the roster, and even with some of the impending free agents that you have in Darius Slayton and Richie James, who both were pretty good receivers in their old right. Richie James really stepping up this year and kind of putting up a few more numbers than I think some people would have expected, kind of like a little bit of the underground darling of the Giants, somebody that I feel like could end up being brought back now, and especially in my scenario with if you think of the idea of Kenny Golladay and Sterling Shepard both being gone, this really opens up the door for Slayton and even James to come back as well. So with that in mind, Sterling Shepard, I think it's just time to move on. With age, injuries, and the production you've kind of gotten from him the last couple of years, and it being a new system, new head coach and all, it just feels like both parties would probably just be in better places to just kind of move on. Now, going into who I think this team needs to re-sign, and I kind of think this is a no-brainer here. I really didn't have to put too much thought into this one here because he emerged, and I don't want to say out of nowhere, but I would say exceeded some expectations, looking really good. I'm going to go with safety Julian Love here. 24 years old. He's about to be 25 in like 10, 11 days, something like that. He started 16 games this past season. Listen to this stat line, man, because the numbers just kind of go on forever. 5 passes defense. He had 2 interceptions, allowing only a 68% completion percentage. He had 124 total tackles. 6 of them were for a loss. He had a sack and a forced fumble, and I believe a fumble recovery as well. I might be misremembering that, but I mean, the numbers just kind of speak for themselves. He was all over the place for this Giants team, totaling 1,133 snaps this past season in those 16 games he started. I picked Xavier McKinney as kind of like the breakout guy for the Giants going into this past season, and while I got the position right, I was not expecting it to be Julian Love. I was thinking the other side of the safety position, but when you look at just the potential, and I still believe in Xavier McKinney, it's just unfortunate that the injuries kind of sidelined him for like half the season this year. With Love emerging as a really solid option on one side of the backfield of the defense, with Xavier McKinney and my belief in him and the potential upside I think he brings to this defense, being able to keep Julian Love around and locking him down and hoping that you get a really good season out of McKinney this next year and him stepping up like I expected him to this past season prior to the injuries, I think being able to lock up the back end of your defense for the foreseeable future in the over these next couple of years will be really good for the Giants. This is a team that has really exceeded expectations in year one of the Brian Daboll era. I'm really excited for how this team is going to shape up in the next few years. They have so much money to work with as well. I'm really impressed with where the Giants are at right now, because this is not the conversation I expected to have, and to know that you're getting emerging stars kind of coming not necessarily out of nowhere, but maybe emerging a little bit faster than you would have anticipated them to. And I think Julian Love being one of those guys, you have to feel really good about what this Giants team is doing. The rebound of Saquon Barkley, the emergence and it seems like solidification of Daniel Jones as the quarterback of the New York Football Giants. This is some really exciting stuff. So lock up Julian Love. Let's keep that youth around here. Again, 25 years old in the next 10, 11, 12 days, something like that. You want to keep a guy like him around and get him on a good deal at the age that he's at right now. Let's lock him up long term. And now finally, we're going to go ahead and look at who I would like to see the Giants pick up in this free agency period coming up here. And for me, now listen, the Giants have $37 million in cap space right now. I am not the type of person that feels like you need to go and just spend because you have the money. I want to see the Giants make smart moves and moves that'll help upgrade your offense. And one position I think the Giants could really look at in this year's free agency pool is the tight end position. The group, as far as who's going to be available this year, not the most stellar group, but you do have some solid guys to look at here. And somebody that I kind of honed in on when I was looking at players and their numbers from the last couple of years has got to be tight end of the Green Bay Packers, Robert Tonyan. At 28 years old, I think this would be an immediate upgrade for the tight end position group over there in New York. This is someone that is not going to break the bank. He's projected by Spotrac to get a contract somewhere around $5 million or so. I could see that maybe even going to 6, 7 even maybe, if it ends up turning into a little bit more of not a bidding war, but maybe some teams are willing to throw a little bit more money at him, because he did have a really strong 2020 season, 11 touchdowns, 500 plus yards. It was a fun season to watch before he got hurt the following year, and he kind of got robbed of being able to really break out after that one strong season. Now, he looked good last year. He only got to start in 3 games, but he did play in every single game for the Packers this past season. He came out with 470 yards, only a couple of touchdowns, so didn't really sniff the 11 touchdowns from a couple of years prior, but he played in all 17 games, so he was healthy, he was available, and he was able to put up some decent numbers in the opportunities that he was given. I feel like Tonyan presents himself to the Giants as an upgrade and an extra piece for this offense, with some sort of uncertainty right now with the wide receiver groups, as we talked about. Kenny Galladay's gone, and in my scenario here, I'm also looking at Sterling Shepard walking away as well. You need to find a receiving target, a big-bodied guy that you can trust and you can count on, especially in the red zone. And I feel like with the style of the running game that they run over there in New York, between Daniel Jones being a scrambling quarterback, or not a scrambling quarterback, but he's a guy that can use his legs and find success getting into the end zone for touchdowns. And on top of that, you have Saquon Barkley now, who has emerged and thrived, at least this past season, in Brian Daboll's offense after a couple of down years. I think if you get yourself a guy like Robert Tonyan, who you can line up in those big formations, heavy set formations, or just bunch type of formations, things like that, he could really excel in the play action, or even just as a guy who, for whatever reason gets lost because the defense is too busy trying to protect Daniel Jones or Saquon Barkley from running into the end zone in those red zone formations. This is a guy that I think adds a good piece of depth to the offense and just a little bit more of a wrinkle to really open things up in the offense and make them a little less predictable. Not somebody you're going to necessarily rely on, but he's an upgrade in the tight end room, and someone that I think brings a little more, I would say, oomph to the offense, if you will. But that's kind of how I look at the Giants free agency this year and how I would like to see them attack things. Let me know again, Giants fans, how would you want to see the New York Giants go after this year's free agency market? Who do you want to see them drop, bring back, maybe pick up in the free agency period once things open up next week? And again, how are you feeling about the re-signing of Daniel Jones? How do you feel about them tagging Saquon Barkley? Do you think he ends up being around? Do you think somebody offers him a sum of money that maybe the Giants didn't expect and they have to let him walk and then they net some draft picks for it? What do you think happens with all that? I'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions. But that's it for me. I appreciate if you made it all the way to the end of the video. I will catch you all on another one. Have a good one.